more on this, we have CGTN's Farai Makutuya live in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now, Farai, once again, the AU chairperson putting the issue of Zimbabwe's sanctions high on the agenda at the UN General Assembly. What's been the reaction there in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think the reaction is one of, really hailing and welcoming this sort of solidarity, this sort of camaraderie. I think authorities here feel justified and vindicated because it is not just Zimbabwean authorities or just Zimbabwe that is saying that these sanctions are bad, that these sanctions are counterproductive. It is other leaders, particularly on the African continent, that are joining them in saying that these sanctions are hurting ordinary citizens, that the casualties of these sanctions are the Zimbabwean economy, are social service delivery, and that it is ordinary citizens that are bearing the brunt of this. And this follows, a similar sort of sentiment that was expressed by South African leader Cyril Ramaphosa when he met American President Joe Biden in Washington, where he talked about this issue of Zimbabwean sanctions. So I think Zimbabwe feels that this continued support from the African continent will add to its diplomatic arsenal as it pushes for the removal of the sanctions. It will justify and vindicate them and hopefully, put pressure to an extent where ultimately there might be some movement or some shift in terms of the policy of those who have imposed those sanctions. So in the coming days, we expect that, this will be really blown up and spoken about extensively in the media outlets, particularly the state media outlets, to talk about the solidarity that African leaders continue to show to Zimbabwe on this issue.
And these calls for I come at a time Harare is facing deep economic challenges. Tell us a bit more about the situation there.
Well, indeed, I think the challenges are well documented. I think inflation has been a huge thorn in the flesh of the economy here. It has gone to triple-digit territory. And while there are measures and efforts by the government to try and rein it in, and it has started to retreat a bit, the challenge is the fact that people's incomes have not risen at a commensurate or, a rate that can allow them to afford these prices, even if they were to stabilize. So there's a huge disparity in terms of what people earn and the cost of living. We also have issues of a shortage of liquidity because of the government measures. Zimbabwe dollars are now very difficult and hard to come by, and so many people are being forced to transact in foreign currency, in US dollars, because going through the formal supermarkets you can't get local currency, and it's not everyone who's earning or is able to generate or get their hands on US dollars. So again, it's making a lot of people get into very difficult situations. Talk about the power crisis. We've been having power cuts that have worsened over the last 2 weeks because of generation issues at some of the power plants, and those have an impact on the economy, those have an impact on people's livelihoods and just general social well-being. So you also have that issue of power cuts. And at the same time, I think the confidence generally that people have, people are very anxious, particularly as we head towards an election in the coming year, and usually around elections there is an economic slowdown. There are more challenges that come about, social issues amongst others. So all of that is combining to make life extremely difficult for ordinary Zimbabweans. Government is trying to address it, but it will take time. And unfortunately, many people want some sort of relief or reprieve immediately, but it will come a few months or weeks down the line, and not immediately.